As a medical examiner, the most common cause of subarachnoid hemorrhage that I see, other than trauma, is the rupture of a berry aneurysm. Warning, I'm going to be discussing sudden death, and I'm going to be showing some pictures taken at autopsy. So if that's not something that you want to see or hear, I'll give you a second to keep scrolling. I'm Dr. Eric Hanberg. I'm a forensic pathologist and medical examiner, and I want to give you a little bit of background just so that we can have some understanding. The word aneurysm just means atypical dilation of a blood vessel. And when people say someone died from an aneurysm, what they actually mean is they died of a burst aneurysm. Aneurysms are more common in arteries than veins, and any artery can develop an aneurysm. A berry aneurysm is an aneurysm that forms in the cerebral vasculature. There are two main factors that are thought to contribute to the formation of berry aneurysms: degenerative change, or more simply just the breakdown of the vessel itself, and high blood pressure, which is actually the pressure of the blood pushing up against the wall of the artery as the heart pumps. Things like shear stress, turbulent blood flow, hypertension, and atherosclerotic deposits can actually cause damage to the internal elastic layer of a blood vessel, and that can cause focal disorganization, defects, or even complete absence of that middle layer called the media. And when these ballooned up arteries burst, which is usually after they get to be bigger than like 7 millimeters, they typically bleed into the subarachnoid space, which is that innermost space in the meninges. People can lose consciousness immediately when this happens, but if they do retain consciousness, they'll usually complain of a very severe headache, typically called the worst headache of my life, or what I've heard my emergency medicine colleagues call a whaml. Less than half of the time that this happens, there are preceding events called sentinel headaches, where there's a small amount of blood leaking from around the vessel, and people will get brief, severe headaches. And that can occur days or even weeks before the fatal rupture. When this aneurysm ruptures, you get a large volume hemorrhage into the subarachnoid space, and that hemorrhage will actually trigger vasospasm, which will in turn cause ischemia, and you'll get widespread ischemic damage to the brain, and eventually that results in death. Now, if someone actually survives on the way to the hospital, they might get a lumbar puncture. And a lumbar puncture would just show red blood cells in the CSF. They might even get a CT scan, which could show a large hemorrhage, a large amount of blood. And if the aneurysm is big enough, it might even show the aneurysm. But I can do it better at autopsy. In cases of berry aneurysm rupture, most of the blood will be on the undersurface of the brain, anatomically called the ventral surface. Now, often in pathology, when you want to examine something delicate, it's best to fix it in formalin first. But in this case, it's actually better to do the exam fresh. And that can be difficult because the brain gets to be really soft and there's a lot of blood. But once all that blood is washed away, the aneurysm can be directly identified. Thank you so much to my friend Dr. Samantha Champion, who's a forensic pathologist and a neuropathologist, for helping me put together this lecture. And let me know if you guys have any questions. And for my medical providers out there, let us know how you've diagnosed this in the past.